All right, this is part two, a follow-up of the deer data that I collected during this season. So just a quick recap, this was our first year where we had self-reporting of our deer harvest in Michigan. And so we finally have some good numbers to go off of. And what I did is I captured those numbers every Friday throughout deer season so that I could have look just at the breakdown of the harvest for my own use. The last video I just did deer totals, and a friend of mine sent me a text and said, have you thought about doing it with just the bucks or just the antlerless? I would bet the percent would change by the seasons. Well, it's a great idea. I hadn't thought about that, but that's what we're going to do now. This particular friend, Brian, he is a scorer for commemorative bucks of Michigan. So as a CBM scorer, he has a unique perspective or insight into what the flow of a season looks like as far as older bucks are concerned. That's a great idea. We're going to break this down differently. I already had all of the data, so I figured why not just change my formulas, and we could look at it by antlered and antlerless. That's how we report in Michigan. We don't do it by sex. We only do it by antlers. So clearly there are bucks that are shot in the antlerless category, but this is the data we have, so this is how we're going to break it down. These numbers were last captured. I did my final on February 3rd because our last deer season ended on January 31st, which is this one right down here. I took some of the deer season data and I placed it throughout this spreadsheet so we could have it on the screen. It seems kind of scattered, but this is the way that the data is presented to us in the hunting digest. It's kind of scattered, so you got to hunt around to find it. And this one right here, I saw lots of people asking questions about that because this season was not included in the other tables. So our one thing I need to point out is I did make an error in my previous video. I had said that this 3.2% was a youth total, but I had completely forgotten that we have an early antlerless firearm deer season here in Michigan. And so this is not actually our youth total. Our youth total really is just 2%. It is not 3.2, it is just 2. And we can see that over here if we look at our buck harvest on a weekly basis. We have our 2.82% of our bucks taken during the youth hunt, and the next weekend drops right off because that was not youth season, that was antlerless only, as we can see over here. So that was my error. I apologize for that. Our youth harvest is even lower than I thought it was before. Okay, so our youth hunt, we're going to look at the bucks first, or antlered deer first. 2.82% of our antlered deer got shot during the youth weekend. Then we had a cool down here while we had our other firearm season, and then a week off, and then the first week of October. It's hot. That is a hot week for archery season. Look at that, 5% right there during the first week. That does not surprise me based on my trail camera data. There are certain properties that are really good early, and if you've got one of those properties, I've got a friend with a property like that. His best big buck opportunity is the first couple days of October, and after that, you know, the rut is not spectacular on his place. So we have a big number starting off, 5%. And then we go down to October 28th is the next point of interest for me, because as I said in the last video, I feel there's a switch that gets flipped for the pre-rut around October 25 or 26, and October 28th capture date was actually much lower than I expected it to be, 2.93%. My buck from this season, my big 8-point that I shot, is actually included in this number right here because I shot him on the 20th, and I think I did the reporting on the 22nd, so that would have fallen into this week's data. Our pre-rut kicks off, our buck numbers increase substantially. I mean, we've got, actually I wanted to do an October total here. Let me do that real quick. So we have that to reference, October 1 through 28, and we'll do our November dates here also for archery. 15% in those 2 weeks, more bucks shot during the first 2 weeks of November than the entire month of October. That's pretty interesting. Next to this, I do have these seasons broken down here with a little explanation. The Independence Hunt took place here, and the Independence Hunt is a firearm hunt. So just keep in mind that during this time period each year, you might want to, for your own safety, have some orange on if you're walking around in the woods, because it is firearm deer season. Firearm deer season, firearm deer season, firearm deer season, and all of this is firearm deer season, and all of this is firearm deer season. But, you know, I'm getting off topic here. So our total archery harvest falls right about this number, almost 33%. So I had said before that I felt like maybe that number should be 35% for archery season. So I'm real close here on my estimate as the buck harvest goes. 32.8, almost 0.9% if you rounded it up. So we're almost 33% there. Firearm season number is huge. This is a huge number for our buck harvest. I mean, look at that, 31% in 1 week, 21% the second week of firearm season. Again, I'm going to point out, a lot of firearm hunters only hunt the first couple days or only hunt through the first weekend. You might want to change your plans a little bit based on this number. I mean, that's big, 21% of the bucks right there. In fact, if we total that up, firearm deer season accounts for 61% of our buck harvest. That's really something. Now the first week of December, you know, I'd said in the last video, the first week of December, more deer were harvested than during the youth hunt. And in my youth data, I was saying 3.2%, but now we've corrected that it's actually 2.05%. So 2.7% of the bucks shot during the first week of December, 2.8% of the bucks shot during the youth hunt. So again, it's real close, slightly fewer bucks shot here, but lots of people complain about the youth hunt in the early seasons, but it really does account for a small number in comparison. I mean, 2.8% the youth hunt, 61% firearm deer season. Second week of December, 2% again. In fact, man, we fall right off after that. But this is our muzzleloader season. And our muzzleloader season for the lower half of Michigan is just another firearm season, because you don't even have to use a muzzleloader now. You can use any firearm that is legal during firearm season during muzzleloader season. So I just nickname it second firearm season, because unless I'm going to hunt my northern Michigan property, I'm just going to hunt with a rifle down here. So after that, our buck harvest falls right off. And if we get ourselves a total for December, this would be December 3 through 30, 5%. 5% of the buck harvest in December. So for the rest of the season, it's a pretty low buck harvest. If we're going to total up January, For the other seasons, 0.2%. That's where it falls off. So this is what our numbers look like. October total, our November archery total, and let's highlight that, is our archery season total. Cumulatively, after firearm deer season, we are there. 94% of the bucks shot after November, through November. Once we get into December, 94% of our bucks for the season have been taken. So jumping over to our antlerless data, we have our youth hunt, 1% of the antlerless. We have our early antlerless firearm season, 2.6%. A week off, and then we start archery season. And look at that. That's a big number in comparison. I mean, the first week of archery season, 4% of our does, I'm going to call them does, it's just easier for me here, are harvested right there. Boom, 4% of the doe harvest. First week of archery season. So we've got a big number here for our archery opener, and we've got a big number here for our archery opener. And then pretty steady, 3%, 3%, 2.5%, 3.5%, down through here. Here's our October. Let's get our October total on there. This would be October 1 through October 28, 12.8% of our doe harvest compared to 14.5% of our buck harvest. It's a lot closer than I thought it would be. I didn't realize that many antlerless deer were getting shot all through archery season. And then during the pre-rut, people decided to stay at it, shoot those does instead of waiting for what might be behind them. So we've got I've mixed up in my head here, 6%. And so through 11/11, granted we had a couple more days after this, this is what our archery season, our first archery season, total looks like for does. 22% of them already taken. Firearm deer season, honestly, some really big numbers. Look at them. Look at the numbers here. 15%, almost 20% the second week. People decided, well, I'm going to hunt for a buck here, and I'll hunt for anything here. And even the third week, same thing. 8% here, 12% there. Our firearm season doe total, 47.5%. Firearm season really is a much larger impact on these numbers than I thought it was. In my head, knowing the people I know and knowing the hunters that I talk to, the 61% and the 47% are really much higher than where I thought we'd be at. We get into the first week of December here for our second firearm season, and 5, almost 6%, a little over 6, 6.5, 6.5. Big numbers here in December. In fact, take a look at that. So we got 12/3 through 12/30. Sorry. Helps if I drag the right cells. Duh. 25%. Look at that. 25%. And then here, the first week of January. Is that right? 12/30. 1/6 the first week of January. 4.4%. Wow. Late antlerless. We still got some late antlerless numbers coming in from the 30 and 31, I guess. late antlerless season, December 12th through January 1. So 30, 31, and 1 down here. 4.4% right there. Holy cow. Here's the end of firearm season. Here's the end of December. 95%. And then if we take and do a January total here, so this would be December 31 through the end of January. 4.6%, but most of that's right here. Here's 4.4 right there. So not much January hunting, not many numbers coming in from this season down here. But look at that. So I'm really surprised again by this. The buck number, I feel like this number right here was the only one I would have guessed. First week of October was really good for a lot of people, and of course once our pre-rut kicked in, it gets real good for a lot of people. But having our doe numbers up this high in archery season and firearm season is real surprising to me. Lots of people I know wait until after firearm season to try to get a couple does. December hunting, which plenty of people did, but this 47% and this 61% are really surprising to me. So there's the data. I hope that's helpful to you. I hope you found it interesting. Remember, this is our data. This is the data that we all get to participate in now. So it's exciting. It'll be interesting to see what next year looks like in comparison to this season. And I guess that's it. We'll wrap it up. And again, I will say we are one of the oldest hunting channels online. Thank you for your support and good luck in the woods.